So welcome back everybody. In this episode we're going to be building us a storage shed, and this is the start of a massive project that's going to go on behind me here. A huge outdoor cooking and entertaining area that we just discussed in another video. Alright, so the privacy fence is going to come from this direction over here, and it's going to come off the house this direction. I want to leave plenty of room between the fence and the air conditioning unit back there so it can breathe, the fan can run, and it can do its thing. So as you can see, I just dug holes several feet into the ground. We're about to fill them with rock, and I do this to help with any post-rot or decay. Gravel in the bottom of a hole free drains out much easier than I'm starting to hit red clay down there that seals up quite well. So we want a gravel base down there before we set our post. We're in a hurricane state, only 20 miles from the coast, got hit by a major hurricane last year. I want strength. Nothing gives you really good strength like posts set deep into the ground. Now I have that shear strength, that wind resistance blowing against this. I'm not worried about a shed lifting up and taking off like in the Wizard of Oz. I'm more worried about it potentially blowing over and rolling over. Post set in the ground gives you a tremendous amount of shear strength. Yes, there's concerns about rot and other things, but a properly drained post I found lasts a very, very long time. And I'm doing this a very special way for a lot of extra strength. I love to overbuild things. Instead of setting my posts in the ground and cutting them off and then coming back with my ledger boards or baseboards, actually, screwing to the outside and then framing up traditional walls, I'm gonna go ahead and run the post all the way up the corner of all the walls, getting that strength carried all the way to the roof in this. So it's very, very strong. So again, several inches of gravel in the bottom of all these holes. That way the post is not setting directly on top of clay in my particular case, sealing the bottom of the post and not allowing it to drain water out and away. All right, so I just got a load dropped off from our friends over at Cashway Building Products in Perry, Florida. Y'all have been trying to recommend more small American businesses on the channel here lately, since we have a little bit of a microphone here. But I've mentioned these guys a lot because our local economy was just wrecked. We lost our two biggest employers with the mills shutting down. And then right behind that, got hit by a major hurricane last year. A lot of these businesses took major hits because of these things. So what I've been trying to do is spread some money out and support our local businesses, and I would ask that y'all do the same. So if you're in the North Florida area, which I know a lot of you are, check out Cashway Building Products in Perry, Florida, and support those guys. They could really use your support right now with everything that's happened here in our local economy. All right, let's have a quick conversation. As you can see, I'm using 2x6 floor joist here. By the way, these are Southern Yellow Pine, which typically carries a higher load rating than a whitewood. You can go look the specs up online to verify that. We're not putting a heavy amount of weight in here, and I did them 16 inches on center. You'll see a lot of people do 24 inch on center for their floor joist, so I'm getting extra strength by going to 16. If we were going to be pulling the lawnmower or something like that in here, like a lot of people do, yes, 2x8s or even 2x10 floor joist would be a smarter choice. This is going to be more than robust enough for the little bit of storage that we're putting in here. Let's talk about the way I connected these. So every 16 inches on center, I put one in, so there's 32, and here's 48 on center, so part of our flooring, because we're going to run a 4x8 sheet of plywood, meet here, we can nail in, and then carry a new sheet this direction. And I just nailed these in from the end. That is not going to support any weight. The nails could pull out. This is basically just holding it in and giving me minor strength. We have to use joist hangers right here. So as you can see, these will go on the bottom side, slide up in underneath, and they have spots to put a heavy duty nail. My framing nailer here, I'll show you some of these nails, can be swapped out. The head can be swapped out, and we can do what's called, like a hanger nail, a fastening nail, or a metal connecting nail is what they're often referred to. They're a much thicker shank. They're galvanized, which we absolutely have to use for this pressure treated wood. And we're going to nail them in here, and then these hangers have kind of like little 45-degree holes right here to nail through as well to go into the board here. We'll use even longer nails for that, 1.5 inch nails for this so we don't blow out the backside. Same thing on the other side. So now you have this particular joist sitting on this bottom bucket with all these nails in, really getting some support. We're not depending on these few little nails out here. That is not going to support a floor joist with a potential decent amount of weight on it. So here are those nails with that thick shank and galvanized coating for pressure treat lumber, but a much thicker nail than your standard framing nail. All right, so I have a little bit of an issue here. This is very common. I've got a bowed bottom plate that's bowed into the inside, and I can't pull it back out by hand. You can see the gap that's left out here. So I need this plate to come out this way. This is pretty easy to remedy with a hammer and a screw. All right, so now you can see I put a screw deep into that bottom plate. Hook your hammer up in there and then press down. Now we've got a ton of leverage with a tool, and I can nail this in place, remove the screw. All right, so it's worth mentioning I'm doing a very untraditional framing method here because, well, it's a shed. I don't have to pass no inspections, and I think this is going to be stronger than the traditional method anyways. So because I chose to leave those 6x6s all the way up through the corner, we're about to cut those off at an angle, by the way, I'm making a very strong structure that I'm tying my wall into and just, you know, corner bracing everything. This is going to be a very strong structure. I'm also doing studs every 16 inches on center. Traditionally, a shed is built on the cheap. You do every 24 inches. I did 3/4 inch flooring, and I'm doing 5/8 siding. A lot of people do 1/2 inch. So everything's being overbuilt, and it really does not cost that much more. Like the 2x4s, for example, are a little over $3 right now. So if I had to cut those posts off at the bottom, like a lot of people would do, you would build a traditional wall up and have basically 2 walls meeting right here and here and nail the corners together. That's how most houses and everything else is built. That's fine. This is definitely a stronger method. But I had to shim the corners out with extra 2x4s here to bring it out nice and flush because that bottom plate was on there. So whenever I put my siding on, we're nice and smooth on either side. So that does waste 2 additional 2x4s all the way around. And my end roof trusses are actually going to be screwed into the 6x6s as well, giving extra strength to the very ends. I'm doing all this to make a very, very strong wall because we are in Hurricane Alley, so to speak. So back to if you were going to have a concrete slab and just do traditional walls, you know, 2 walls meet right here and just nail them together, no post, you would want to make sure your bottom plate is made out of pressure treat wood. And it's best to put a foam sealer underneath as well. You don't want traditional kiln dried wood touching concrete. I'm okay here. Again, this is just a shed. We're just going to vent it, leave it open to the atmosphere. And I'm up well above the water table, not on concrete. But I did want to mention that. And you could erect this even quicker if I didn't have these posts going all up in the corners here. If I just cut them off at the bottom and put the floor on top of the post, so to speak, throw up traditional walls, go. So there's definitely some extra work and steps right here, but I think it's just going to make an unbelievably strong shed. All right, so now that I've got my doorway marked out, and by the way, I previously made some marks as I was putting the panels up down there on my joist and up high before I completely closed it up so I'd know exactly where my doorway is. But I've marked it to the outside. Now we're gonna cut through the door except for every 4 corners. We're gonna leave just a little bit of material to hold the door in place because I'm gonna come back and paint all of this as one structure with my spray paint gun here in just a little bit. And then once the paint dries, we'll cut out those last 4 corners, remove the door, and it's already painted for us. I don't have to get my paint gun dirty again or roll or nothing. It's all done at once. And then we're gonna build a frame for this door. So the cuts that I'm about to make don't have to be absolutely perfect. We're gonna frame this all out, trim it out, and it's gonna look a lot better. So what I've done is I have adjusted this bottom plate that goes in and out to where that blade just will barely cut through this material. There's no point in cutting deep into the framing that we've already done. So I'm just gonna make these light cuts. Again, leave the corners, then we'll come back in a little while after the paint's dry, notch it all out. And I have enlisted the help of Tiffany today, since we're trying to knock all this out in one day, and she's over here painting all the trim boards. This is what we're gonna trim the door out with and all the corners. So she's getting our first coat of paint on that so we can put them up. Then I'll do a second coat once they're on the buildings themselves. So I forgot to mention the siding that I'm putting on is called T111. It's a very popular siding because it's already grooved and has some character to it. I've got 4-inch on center grooves cut right here. But the important thing to note, you can see how one end is actually cut down. That's to accept an overlapping lip from the other piece. Each side of a 4x8 sheet is designed to overlap on another one. That's why you see me running a bead of caulk in between this, and then you nail at the seams, putting the two together, and you can't tell where the seam is at all. So you can't tell you use independent 4x8 sheets right here, or individual ones. So it's a pretty neat product, very popular, and I went with a thicker 5/8. You can get it in 3/8, half, 5/8. You could probably get it in 3/4. But the thicker, the better, the stronger this is gonna be right here. Now that I have all the peaks and everything trimmed up to my liking, I'm gonna go ahead and paint this and let it dry while we go eat lunch. Then I can come back and start on the door, or I can put the roof on, put the corner trim on that's already been drying for a while. I just really like this technique. And I'm gonna spray paint this even though it's small because we have these deep grooves and crevices right here, and it's so hard to get in there with a roller. You would actually have to hand brush all that in. It's just gonna be so much quicker to use a paint sprayer, even though I still gotta clean the sprayer up after I'm done with the work. we are losing daylight and we got rain on the way, so let me show you this thing. All right, so coming around to this side, you can see I just decided to use the cutout of the T111 to make me a door to save some money, actually to save a pile of money. So we framed it out, or we trimmed it out on the outside with just some cheap 1x4s, painted them, and you're gonna see I framed it on the inside to keep this from warping and moving. Use some pretty heavy duty hinges here. And what I just did right here is I'd use some Z flashing and made a drip lip over that. So if we get driving rain, it'll come and drip and go down the front side of this. I still got to do a lot of sealing up after this storm gets through. I'm just out of time today. I got to caulk all my joints and nail holes and a few things like that. We'll catch all that off camera. So I got a vent up top. Let's take a look inside. All right, so you can see I framed the door out with 2x4s because that T111 is just too flimsy and it'll warp as is. So that'll make this nice and strong. It's a very heavy duty door now. All right, let's take a look inside. I'm probably gonna paint all these corners to make them a little more weatherproof, and I may put some foam seal here if I notice any rain issues, but I think the drip edge is gonna take care of the majority of my problems. So it's just your typical 7x7 shed, although very robust, being the corners are built out the way they are. And I did pretty tight spacing on my roof trusses, and really did kind of beef those up with these cross members right here. The other thing I'm going to do off camera, I think I'm going to go ahead and put some hurricane clips in here. Even though this roof is technically strapped down with the T111, like it's nailed all into that truss, so the actual T111 acts as a hurricane strap. I don't think none of this stuff's going anywhere. I think I'm going to nail in a hurricane strap that ties to this top plate and ties to the side of these 3 trusses. The other thing I'm going to do, I've got a vented peak right here, which is nice. I think I'm going to put another one of these vents in on the back side to move some more heat out of this room. But I'm going to put some of that breathable foam mesh up in there because we're going to wind up with wasp and everything else in here, dirt daubers, if I don't take care of that vented roof. But I've already purchased some of that. We're going to stick it in after the storm so we can still get some airflow, but it'll block all the bugs out. All right, so coming up in the future, we're gonna do some shelving out here. We still gotta figure that out. We may just buy some wire shelving, or I may build some in, who knows. We're gonna run some power out to this room because we're probably gonna run a dehumidifier in here. We're gonna attempt to keep our cast iron pots and pans and stuff like that in here, but it's Florida, so much humidity, they may rust on us, but we may run a dehumidifier. We'll need power for that. And I'm either gonna convert my pumping well to solar power, or we're gonna run everything out here off of solar power, one or the other, because I've got 2 wires run out here, and one or the other can be on solar, one can be on grid. So we're just getting started. Now that the shed is up, we still got more work to do on the shed, a little fun stuff we'll bring along with, but the shed now determines where we can put our privacy fence. That's gonna be the next stuff that we're gonna be working on here, like really basically turning this outside area into a room, so to speak. That's what the privacy fence is there for, just to kind of section it off and make it feel like an extension of the house. All right, like I said, a lot of little touch-up stuff to do. I'll catch it off camera. I've run out of light. We got storms on the way. This is now weatherproof enough. It'll be good till after the storms pass, and in a couple of days I'll come out here and finish caulking everything up and getting it tidied. And then we'll include y'all in the next episode where we'll do some shelving, some electrical, but more importantly, the privacy fence that's now gonna tie off of the corners of this building, and really starting on this big outdoor cooking area that we're building here. All right, a little unorthodox in my build techniques there. Nothing super traditional about that, but hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll catch you on the next video.